My name's Chris, and thank you for joining me on this first episode of Chris's Dining with Dragons. I'm, as I said, I'm Chris. On this show, I will be cooking recipes from fandoms that have foods with given uh, recipes and instructions, starting out with D&D. I will also invite a guest along to dine with me and give their commentary upon the dish. So, I'm going to introduce myself to you guys so you get to know me better. I am 16 years old. I identify as male. I like to cook, read comics, write comics, and play games of almost any sort, really. I have many fandoms. Actually, it's quite difficult for me to think of just one, or, well, a small handful. I'm going to discuss how I was introduced to each fandom, starting out with Five Nights at Freddy's. I was introduced to Five Nights at Freddy's through a free games site. I was bored one day. I was young, like 10 maybe. I was bored. My schoolwork was done, so I was just going through a free games website. And I happened across FNAF. The cover was interesting. There was a robot bear. I didn't know much about FNAF. I didn't know anything about FNAF, actually. So I was like, interesting. Sure, I'll play it. Clicked on it. I couldn't survive any of the nights. I could not survive night one. I kept dying to everybody but Foxy, pretty much. And so I was determined to beat this game, so I started learning more about it, and eventually I learned more. There was more FNAF games. I started learning more about the lore, how to beat it, and eventually it grew into an admiration, a love for FNAF. Another fandom I enjoy is actually quite well known. Marvel. I was pretty much born loving Marvel. My family loves Marvel. We are big fan of Marvel in my family. My favorite is Spider-Man 2099. For those who don't know who Spider-Man 2099 is, that is Miguel O'Hara. I am also a huge fan of DC, though not as much as Marvel. I was also pretty much born into loving DC, too. I believe DC has better villains than Marvel, while Marvel has better heroes. Those are big reasons why, other than pretty much being born into loving those, why I like both companies. I'm also a big fan of the Hellaverse, which consists of Hasbro Hotel and Helva Boss. Funny thing is, I didn't know anything remotely about Vivzy Pop's work until my friend chose their avatar picture for, I don't remember what anymore, to be Alistair from the pilot of Has Been Hotel, when he's all staticky and stuff. I was confused what that was, so I asked my friend what that was. He said Has Been Hotel and sent me a link to it on YouTube. So I watched the pilot for Hazbin Hotel. This was like 1 or 2 years before the show came out fully. And I was astonished. Like, I like this show. I want more of it. I tried hunting for more. And then that led me to Helva Boss, which I love that show as well. So I became a fan of Hazbin Hotel, the Helliverse, through that. Um, Another one of my fandoms is Scream. It is actually my favorite movie series. I don't remember how I was introduced to that movie actually, but ever since I saw that movie, I loved it. I loved how it poked fun at horror movies in a loving way, and, well, just the evil playfulness of Ghostface. It's ingenious. I am also a huge fan of Star Wars. I'm okay. I know it's not a science fiction movie series, really, and it's controversial that about the sequel trilogy. The sequel trilogy is not my favorite. But I enjoy Star Wars. I like learning about the cultures, the technology, how people think and act within that world. That is a similar reason why I also enjoy Star Trek. I like learning about different cultures and beliefs, and Star Trek and Star Wars are good ways of me learning about that. And, well, it got me invested in the franchise so that's actually another fandom I enjoy is Evil Dead. I ever since I saw the first movie, I was terrified of it. Like, it was so real, but so outlandish that I was just terrified. That's why I like the second one better than the first one. It's a good balance for me of comedy and horror. I like enjoying a movie, but instead of like most of the time screaming, but there are some moments I do want a movie I want fear of. And now I'm moving on to a book series I thoroughly enjoy. It's called Six of Crows. It's a duology. I happened upon it in a library one day, and I was like, "Oh, cool! Crows are my favorite bird, and it seems interesting. I'll read it." As soon as I finished with the first book, I hunted for the second book, and
pause it.
Another franchise I enjoy is the Ninja Turtles. I was born into loving this fandom as well, actually, if I remember correctly. As far as I remember, I've always enjoyed the Ninja Turtles. And my favorite turtle is actually Raphael, which for some reason gets a lot of hate. I don't know why. Another fandom I enjoy is the Addams Family. They're just a bunch of a really quirky family, and I resonate with that. I'm odd myself, so I found solace in that family. And another game series I enjoy is Assassin's Creed. Yeah, I was also born into loving this one. There's a lot of fandoms I was born into loving. Anyway.
Chris. Chris. You were born after Assassin's Creed came out.
I know.
So you weren't born into loving it.
Y'all love the series, so in turn I started loving the series.
Okay.
That's what I meant. One of my favorite hobbies in the Assassin's Creed games is just, especially the original Assassin's Creed, just throw off the bodies and just off the top roofs and to see the fancy people run. It's so entertaining. Another fandom I enjoy is Hellboy. I haven't read the comics. I've seen some of the movies. I actually kind of want the comics because I want to learn more about Hellboy. Because of Ron Perlman, I enjoy Hellboy, and I want to learn more about where Hellboy came from. Another fandom I enjoy is Blues Brothers. I was also born into loving that because I don't remember ever not knowing about Blues Brothers.
Your dad taught me about it.
A horror film I enjoy is Rocky Horror Picture Show. Oh my god, it is so insane you can't not love it. It's a musical horror film, and oh boy.
It was also a thing your dad taught me about. I've never watched it before him.
I don't know what my life would be without Rocky Horror Picture Show, honestly. Another horror film I enjoy, a horror film series I enjoy, is Puppet Master. When I was younger, the first Puppet Master terrified me. Don't know why, there was nothing really scary about it. But as I grew up, I learned more about the puppets and the weird, twisted timeline that doesn't fit with the series. But, I just love the quirkiness, and my favorite puppet is Six Shooter because he's a cowboy and come on, he looks cool. I also enjoy Mortal Kombat. There are still things I'm learning about Mortal Kombat, the original timeline before it got rebooted in Mortal Kombat 1. But ever since I learned about Mortal Kombat and I saw my dad playing it, I've always enjoyed it. When I was younger, I always thought it was just a storyless, brutal video game, but as I grew older, I learned more and more about, the story and the origins of the characters, and I got invested in it. And now this is my final fandom, Fallout. I have not seen the show yet, no spoilers, but the earliest game I remember my dad playing is Fallout 4, and as soon as I laid my eyes upon it, I was invested. I liked how darkly comedic it was, and yet how realistic at points it was. And the graphics are so beautiful that you can't not look at the graphics and say, God, that is gorgeous. I appreciate you listening to me, learning more about me, and I hope you had fun, and I hope you join me later in further episodes so we can share meals together, so we can just hang out, pretty much. So, if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, and ring the bell.